What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Ian Ewing. On today's episode, we are going to do a deep dive into the Packers' Week 6 opponent, the Cincinnati Bengals, who are now 2-3, and since losing Joe Burrow in Week 2, look like the worst team in football. So I'll say from the jump, if the Packers don't win this game big, I give up, and you will not have any more Titletown Talk the rest of existence. I'm kidding. But obviously, there's been a lot of panic the last 2 weeks. I've heard a lot of Packers pundits sort of change the tune on the Packers. Obviously, the national media now thinks they're fraudulent. I'll start out by saying, before we get into the breakdown, the Eagles lost big last night to the New York Giants, which I think are a lot better than people thought, especially Jackson Dart. Looks really good. I'm just going to say this before we get into it. The NFC is wide-ass open. And I think the Packers have just as good of a shot as anyone to take the NFC by the throat. Before we get into the breakdown, the Packers open up as 14-point favorites at home this week. I do think that line is fair. I will say, I heard a lot of Bengals hype coming into the season before they lost Joe Burrow, to be clear. I heard a lot of sports media glazing over them, how they could be a playoff team. If Joe Burrow plays like we know he can, they can be a Super Bowl team, blah, 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 whatever. Even with Joe Burrow, I think the ceiling for this team was an 8 or 9 win team. I think the Bengals are, if any Bengals fans watch this, I apologize, or listen to this. I think the Bengals are one of the most incompetent franchises in the sport. And I think the close fans of the Bengals know that. They're very, very cash strapped all the time. I thought they made a really big mistake re-signing T. Higgins and not prioritizing their defense more. In terms of the team itself, right, the NFL has the salary cap, but there are a lot of things you can do to manipulate the salary cap, like pushing out cap hits, giving signing bonuses up front. That makes the salary smaller, adding void years, all the stuff the Packers do really well, by the way. You can only do that if you have a lot of cash on hand. And the Bengals, I think for the 8th year in a row or something, have some of the worst amounts of cash on hand of any team in the league. So I think they need to sell this team something fierce. I think at some point they probably will. That being said, Joe Burrow is great. Jamar Chase is great. I think T. Higgins is a little bit overrated, but he's still good. Their defense is a complete joke. Teams can't win the Super Bowl in this day and age anymore if you just have a high-powered offense. You just can't. There are too many good offenses on the other side, and if you have to get into a shooting match, the team with a better defense is going to win that every time. So, again, this offseason, they decided to sign T. Higgins and improve that offensive attack versus improving their defense. And they proceeded to fight with Trey Hendrickson for 3 months. That almost led him to being traded. By the way, the Packers almost traded for him. So, let's get into the game a little bit. The Bengals' offensive line has been a huge problem for 3 seasons. Joe Burrow literally got hurt because he took, his 5th sack of the game against the Jaguars. And as great as Joe Burrow is and as great as Jamar Chase is, they've covered up for a lot of flaws in this team. And for some reason, their front office thought it was sustainable to just, keep running it back with these guys, not make the offensive line any better, and, let the defense go to hell. They then proceed to, I don't know if they fired Lou Anarumo or not. He ended up becoming the defensive coordinator for the Colts, and he looks pretty damn good this season. So I don't even know who the Bengals defensive coordinator is, but anyway, let's get into the team. Let's break down both sides of the ball, talk about where their talent is, who we need to watch out for, where their weaknesses are, etc. So going into the game, I wondered if they would make a quarterback change. I was actually kind of nervous that they might start Mike White, who's actually won some games in this league. He's had some impressive games in his career. Well, Tuesday morning, I believe it was, they cut him. And then they trade for a familiar face. Joe frickin' Flacco is now a Cincinnati Bengal, and he is starting this week against the Packers. So, boy, oh boy, I don't want to say that I'm nervous, but I do think that they have a much better chance of winning with Joe Flacco than they do Jake Browning. Now, that's a very low bar, but I think Joe Flacco's proven over the years he can sling it. He's still got a great arm, and you got 2 really good receivers out there. So, we'll get into that in a minute. Let's get into the Bengals offense overall. The top 5 graded on offense from PFF. Number 1 is Jamar Chase with a 76.8 grade. Remember, guys, the PFF grades have a lot to do with getting open, creating separation, stuff like that. So, yeah, his quarterback has sucked, but that grade really doesn't have a lot to do with the quarterback. So you can kind of see he just isn't getting open as much as he used to. Now that doesn't mean I think he's still a top 3 receiver in this league. And again, he's going to be a major factor in this game. But, I'd say 76.8 is a little bit low for him. Number 2 is T. Higgins with a 68. Very average start for T. Higgins so far. He just doesn't get open that well. He doesn't get separation the way that even Jamar Chase does. He's not a great athlete, but he's got phenomenal hands. He's a savvy route runner, and he wins with pure physicality. And when you rely on that stuff, you do have to have somebody who's going to place the ball where it needs to be, and obviously their quarterback play has been bad. Their third-ranked player, Orlando Brown Jr., their tackle, he has a 57.8 grade, only a 52 pass blocking grade. Mike Gesicki is number 4, their tight end, 57.1. And Andre Iosivas, that's how you say his name, Iosivas, that's how it looks. He's their receiver. He's their third receiver. I believe he's their slot guy. He's number 5 with a 56.9. So as you can see, outside of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, this offense has been really, 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 really bad. Notice how there's no running backs in their top 5. For them to be graded this poorly, 5 games into the season, it just goes to show you how little they have in terms of weaponry on this team. At quarterback, let's start there. The Bengals trade for Joe Flacco. And it was reported it was yesterday now, that he will be the starter this weekend. His PFF grade so far is a 60 overall. So he's, I think, the 37th worst quarterback in the league. He's the worst of all the starting quarterbacks that have been out there so far this year. So, yes, he beat the Packers in week 3. But as you all saw with your own 2 eyes, he didn't beat the Packers. The Browns defense beat the Packers. He played comically bad in that game. And sorry, wins are not a quarterback stat. If you disagree, you're just wrong. So let's start with the obvious. He can't move. He can't run. He's a statue back there. He's old, right? We'll get into pass protection in a little bit from the Bengals' perspective, but I'll say this. The Bengals' offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL. It's much worse than the Browns. He's far less mobile than Joe Burrow was. He's far less mobile than even Jake Browning is. The Packers were in his grill the entire game against the Browns. And as predicted before that game, I said they would put Joe Flacco in absolute hell, and they did. So again, the Browns' offensive line is quite a bit better than the Bengals, especially on the interior. I think this could get ugly early against the Packers front. Secondly, he was acquired on Tuesday. I'm recording this on Friday. They've probably done 2 practices, right? So, he's a savvy vet. He's smart. Been in the league a long time. I do think that he's going to have the playbook down enough to be competent. But his rapport with receivers, or lack thereof in this case, I do think is a pretty big deal. So having practice time with your receivers where you can get to know them, the nuances of their routes, all that stuff, making sure they're running at the correct depth, all that stuff. We've talked a little bit about throwing with anticipation on this show. That's how all the good quarterbacks play. They throw to a spot. So sometimes when quarterbacks look inaccurate, it's because the receiver isn't where they need to be. It's not always the case, but that's the case a lot of the time, right? Joe Flacco is not going to be able to throw with the anticipation he needs to in this game because he doesn't know these receivers and he doesn't know the playbook super well. So I do think that's going to be a factor. Normally in a game like this with a brand new quarterback, you would lean into the run game, but the Bengals are historically bad at running the ball. So we'll get into that in a second. They cannot run the ball. One of the worst running teams in the NFL. In 2023, to kind of put a bow on Joe Flacco, he did play pretty well at the end of 2023. He had some moments last year when he started for the Colts. In 2023, at the end of that season, he actually led the Browns to a 4-1 record. So again, if there's any proof of concept that he can throw the ball, that's probably what you look at. And this is definitely the best group of receivers that he's probably ever played with. Before we move on and put a bow on Joe Flacco, I'm not saying this will happen. I will not predict this, but Joe Flacco has a big game in him somewhere. We've seen it before. You look at Josh Dobbs for the Vikings a few years back in a situation like this where the quarterback was acquired days prior. Baker Mayfield for the LA Rams back in 2022 where he won a game on like 3 days of learning the offense. We've seen it. There's precedent for this. Not saying it will happen, but sometimes when you get a new guy in there, you can get a little bit of a spark. And I just hope the spark doesn't come this week. He could still throw the damn ball. When you got receivers like this outside, He's not in a bad spot. We'll just say that. Let's talk about the running game really quick, or lack thereof. Running back, they have Chase Brown, Samaje Perine, and the rookie Taj Brooks, who I really like, by the way. Chase Brown's the starter. He has the most carries, 53.6 grade, so pretty abysmal. Samaje Perine, 55.1, and Taj Brooks has a 58, a blustering 58. None of these guys are remotely good enough to do well in this game, in my opinion. I know we saw, Quinshon Judkins run on the Packers quite a bit. The Cowboys running backs look pretty good at times. Also, these guys are not good. The Packers should have no issue making the Bengals one-dimensional in this game. I think I'd be surprised if the Bengals even rush for 60 yards in this game. Now, granted, maybe there's some garbage time stuff in there. Maybe they do a draw play on a 3rd and 25 where they pick up 20. Who knows, right? There could be some weird ones there, but I am not, and no one else should fear their running game in any capacity. Let's put a bow on the Bengals offense by talking about their offensive line. They've given up 75 pressures in 5 games so far. That is terrifying. If you're a Bengals fan, that's essentially 15 pressures a game. Their run blocking grades are even worse. Their best graded offensive lineman is Orlando Brown at that 55 we talked about earlier. Some of their starters are in the 30s and 40s. This offensive line is very, very bad. You can take advantage of them even with an average defensive front. The Packers, top 5 front in the NFL. They have been by every pass rushing metric you can look at. When the Packers rush 4, they've generated pressure on 71% of their snaps. 71 pressures when they rush 4. So for perspective, that is, I believe, 5th in the NFL right now, and all the teams above them only have played 5 games. So I think the Packers are going to put the Bengals in a blender in this game. To kind of finish up on the offense, one more thing I'll say quick. The Packers have to be worried about Jamar Chase. They cannot let him go off in this game. If I'm the Packers, I shade McKinney over there to that side, make sure he doesn't beat you. If T. Higgins goes for 8 catches, 150 yards, you just say, oh, yeah, good job. Don't think that's going to be enough to win. Jamar Chase goes off in this game. That could be a little bit scarier. So what is the Packers' game plan going to be on offense? What are the keys on defense? What are the Packers' plans on defense? Number 1, pin your ears back and get pressure on Flacco. Devontae Wyatt's going to be out in this game. He's not going to play. I don't think we'll see him until Pittsburgh, if I'm being honest, but I don't think they need him in this game. I think that Carl Brooks and possibly Warren Brinson, who will make his debut this weekend, I think can eat against this offensive line. I think they're going to move LVN in the middle. I think Mike and the boys are going to put Flacco in hell again in this game. It took an MVP performance last week from Dak for the Packers' pressure to look the way it did. Even with that, they still had 19 pressures against Dallas. If they get 19 pressures against Joe Flacco, it's not going to look as good as it did with Dak. We'll just say that. So I could see a world where the Packers get 30 pressures in this game. I'm dead serious. The game plan really should be early on. It should be this way in every game. Get ahead early on offense. Make the Bengals throw it. And then shut the run game down if they do try to run it. Make Joe Flacco throw the ball 40 times. If he has to throw that many times, it's going to be over quick. Key number 2, get some damn turnovers, right? All we heard all summer long was, the ball, get the ball. Basically, they're essentially saying, turn the ball over. Ball is king, or whatever the thing they said. They emphasized turnovers the entire training camp. They did it in OTAs. They did every chance they got in the summer was talking about forcing fumbles and getting picks. Through the first 4 games, the Packers have gotten 2 interceptions. They have not forced a fumble. So I think that's quite surprising. Personally, I thought that they would be, getting a lot more turnovers. The fact that the Packers are doing as well as they are statistically, considering they haven't gotten hardly any turnovers, it just shows you the ceiling of this defense is we haven't even seen it yet. So turnovers come in bunches. Joe Flacco has 6 picks already this season. I think the Packers have to win the turnover battle in this game. It all starts with finally forcing some turnovers. They've come close a few times. They've had a couple where the forced fumble was just right there. They've dropped a few picks. It just hasn't come in as far as we want it to be, right? We want the Packers to be turning the ball over more than, 0 or 1 time a game. I think if you get 2 turnovers in this game, unless the Packers have 3 or whatever, that should be the nail in the coffin for this Bengals team. Key number 3, the corners need to play tighter on the receivers and defend against the quick passing game. I watched that Cowboys All-22 3 times. I've heard other podcasters and analysts say it a bunch. I don't think anybody will be able to replicate what Dallas and Dak did in week 4. That being said, their game plan was essentially get the ball out quick before the rush gets there and make sure that it's in the right spot. And that's essentially what the Cowboys did in that game. I think that's a really good idea for the opposing offense against the Packers defense. Try to run the ball. I don't think the Bengals can run the ball. And then get rid of the ball quick. Don't let the pass rush get there. So because of that, the Cowboys showed that it worked. Other teams are going to try that now. So I think it's really important that the corners play tight in this game. They don't play, 10 yards off. Don't give them easy completions. Force Joe Flacco to stand in there for 3 seconds plus, because if he does, I don't think they're going to have any issue hitting him and getting to him. The corners against Dallas played way off several times, and it felt like whenever Dallas needed a quick completion, it was there. And then when they did tighten up, Dak actually had time to throw. So it just felt like the perfect recipe for not getting there against the Cowboys. They're going to get there plenty in this game against the Bengals. In this one, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, they're talented enough to take over a game. They've done it many times. Challenge them. Be aggressive. Fight like hell. Get those safeties over the top. Make sure Jamar Chase isn't beating you deep. This is not the game to play passive coverage where, Joe Barry-style defense. And I think Hafley's going to have the DBs ready in this game. The only chance the Bengals have on offense is if the receivers just go off. It's the only way they can even possibly compete. Last one, tackle. Yes. The biggest surprise, the biggest area of concern when I went back and watched the Dallas game was the Packers tackled pathetically bad. The secondary, specifically like Carrington Valentine, when he missed that tackle on George Pickens, that took it in for, I think it was 14 seconds left in regulation or something like that. It gutted me to watch how bad they tackled in that game. PFF only had them at 8 tackles against the Cowboys. I felt like that was low. I counted probably at least 10 plus, right? Edgerrin Cooper has been a really good tackler since he got on the team. He had 3 missed tackles last week. Come on. That just can't happen again. I don't see any way in hell that he struggles for a second game in a row. There were a lot of missed tackles that, again, felt like they didn't count all of them at PFF. So I think in this game, the Bengals have very few paths to victory. The Packers are by far the better team. When you're missing tackles, instead of it being 2nd and 7, it's 2nd and 2 or 3rd and 3 or whatever. You're just doing them more favors. Don't give them extra yards. Make sure that if you do play off and they catch the ball, tackle them. So, again, I don't think that will be too big of an issue, but we got to talk about it. Let's flip it over to the Bengals defense and how the Packers will attack them on offense. The Bengals defense is basically at the end of the league, the last in the league in every category. They're 30th in yards per game, 30th in points allowed, 24th in rush defense. More importantly, though, you guys know I love DVOA. We talked about it in our first ever Titletown Talk episode. They're 30th in DVOA. So that essentially means that when you weigh the strength of the opponent out, it basically just proves they're just as bad as their regular stats would tell you. Yes, the Cowboys defense is bad. In fact, it's worse by some metrics. But if you look at the roster as a whole, there are a lot more guys on Dallas that I'm afraid of as opposed to the Bengals defense. Not to mention the Cowboys have Dak. They have a good offense, right? So PFF's top 5 graded players on the Bengals defense. Trey Hendrickson's number 1 at 86 overall. He has a 90 pass rushing grade. He's doing his thing this season. He's still as dominant as ever. He's got a 23% pass rush win rate. Dude's playing out of his mind again. Number 2 is actually Oren Burks, the linebacker, former Packer. He's their Sam linebacker. As was the case when he was in Green Bay, he can't cover. He only has the 39 coverage grade, which is putrid. The linebacker core in general in this Bengals team is really bad. We'll get to that in a minute. Oren Burks does have a good run defense grade at 84, so definitely showing something there. Geno Stone is their number 3 ranked player at 66.1. Love Geno Stone. I thought that if the Packers missed out on Xavier McKinney, that it would make sense for them to acquire Geno Stone last year. Big fan of his tape. He's played well this season so far. Jordan Battle, their safety, 66 overall, only a 60 coverage grade. Dax Hill, their corner, at number 5, 63.5. So their defense is bad, just being honest. Dax Hill specifically, guys, he's given up 244 yards alone on his side. The craziest number, though, is he's given up 159 yards after the catch. So essentially, if you catch the ball in front of him, he's not going to tackle you. So I think there's a world where the Packers can eat against this Bengals defense. The Packers don't score 25 in this game, at least. You got to consider that a disappointment. I was watching a video of a Bengals podcaster. I think it was a podcaster. He was talking about how the defense has been better than the offense this season. And, there's just not as many communication errors. And, they're a little bit underrated. I'm like, there's no way. If you guys watch that tape, every team that's played them so far has played abysmal. So I don't see any reason why that would change in this game. All starts with Trey Hendrickson, right? He's their one and only star on defense. He's the only person you have to worry about. On the defensive line, obviously, Trey Hendrickson should be the focus. But if you're LaFleur, he should not be we have a full play sheet when he's not out there guy like they did with Myles Garrett. I thought that was a bad plan against him. It'd be worse against Trey Hendrickson because the Bengals don't have the horses around him that the Browns do. So I think they contain him just by sliding over some help. They chip a little bit. They don't need to overplay that hand, in my opinion. The defensive line, you can take advantage of them inside. TJ Slayton's in there, who was the former Packer. He's played decent this season against the run, but offers zero pass rushing juice. Nobody on the interior scares me at all. From a pass rushing standpoint, the only other guy with 10 pressures is BJ Hill. He's getting about 2 per game, so he's got 11 pressures. Not fearing him whatsoever. Trey Hendrickson has 21 pressures, so he's averaging about 4 per game at this point. So again, nobody else scares me. They do have Joseph Asai on the other side. He's an interesting guy. He's got 13 pressures, but his pass rushing grade is only 47. So that's bad. The wild card in this game is Shamar Stewart. The Bengals drafted him in this year's draft. If you guys listen to any of my draft preview episodes, I talked about Shamar Stewart being potentially a steal in the draft. I love this kid. I think he's going to be a star. He's been battling injuries so far this season. I don't think if he does play, he's going to be in a snap count. Do I think he can take over the game? No, but he played well in week 1 against the Browns. He's got to be someone we keep a close eye on. When you go to their linebackers, putrid. They haven't played. Oren Burks is their best linebacker. He's not even their starter. The other 2 guys are Logan Wilson, who's played some good football in the past. There was a season a couple years ago where he had like 5 picks. His grade this season is only 56. 50 grade in coverage. He's not good against the run either. Their other linebacker is Demetrius Knight Jr. He was a second-round pick in last year's draft. He's a smart guy, not athletic whatsoever. His grade's only 46, but his run defense is 32. Abysmal. So again, you can take advantage of their defense in several ways. I think the main goal the Packers should have is feed Tucker Kraft, get him against those linebackers, and just go to town. They don't cover well. They don't tackle well. Demetrius Knight Jr. has been bad. So again, I think try to get matched up on those linebackers as much as you can and just go to town. The secondary overall, we talked about Dax Hill a minute ago. He's had a decent grade this season. They have DJ Turner on the other side. He's been really bad. And then their slot guy is Cam Taylor-Britt. I don't remember who he played for prior to this season. He's got a 55 coverage grade this year. So whoever's playing in the slot in this game, whether they move Wicks over or they play Golden in the slot, you can go to town against these guys. The safeties, Geno Stone, Jordan Battle, solid players. None of them keep you up at night. So let's go through the keys on offense for the Packers. Don't turn the ball over, number 1. The only way in hell the Packers lose this game is if they're stupid with a football. That's it. The Bengals team I think this is the worst team in the NFL. The only way they have a chance to win this game is if the Packers beat themselves. There will be no Bengals winning this game. It will be the Packers losing this game. If the Packers come out of this with an L, it's because they beat themselves again. So take what the defense gives you. Be smart with the football. As long as you don't turn it over 2+ times, you're going to win this game. So just don't be stupid. Number 2, no penalties, no stupid penalties. All we've seen the first 4 games is the Packers racking up penalties. It feels like every time they have a good play, there's a flag on the play. And it seems like they come at the worst time too, whether it's like a deep completion or they get like an 8-yard gain, 2nd and 2, and then there's a holding call. Or they're first and goal and then they have a false start. It just feels like every single time they've gotten their wheels going this year so far, they get a penalty and it slows them down. So do not throw your hands up, have a bunch of penalties in this game. I think that's going to make it really easy to win this game. Number 4, take advantage of the Bengals' poor run defense. Like I said earlier, guys, their running game is very bad. We saw the Packers' their run defense is really, really bad. The Packers' running game came to life against Dallas. Every team that's run the ball against the Bengals this year has had success. That's what happens when you have linebackers who can't tackle, they can't feed their gaps. When you have an interior with one guy who can stop the run, and then you got rookies on the other edge on the other side who can't stop the run either. So you jam it down their throats. I think that their game plan is going to be to stop Jordan and the offense from throwing the ball. They get 2 safeties back. You just run it down their throat the whole game. And then you throw a little bit of play action in there when they're sleeping. They start expecting the run. And that's when you play and you hit them deep, right? Last thing, be competent on special teams. I just want competent. That's all I want. You can make a strong case that the Packers would be 4-0 right now, at least 3-1, if they even had a bad special teams. So don't miss field goals in this one. Don't hold people on kickoffs. Don't let returners put them in good field position. And lastly, for the love of God, no more block kicks. The block kicks, basically, I think it swayed the game completely against Dallas. I think they win that game going away if they don't get that field goal block or the extra point block. If they didn't block the field goal against the Browns, the Packers win that game and they're 3-1 or 4-0. So just be competent on special teams. I don't even care. Don't even be competent. Be like the 25th best in the league. Just don't give the game away on special teams. Okay, final prediction. The Packers have many, many, many paths to victory in this one. They can run it. They can throw it. They can stop them on defense. There's one path for victory for the Bengals. It's simple. Joe Flacco would need to go off in this game. He'd need to play like 2012 Joe Flacco. That would require Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to play out of their minds, which they're more than capable of. And on top of that, they would need a lot of short fields, like the Packers turning the ball over, stupid penalties, whatever, right? Is that possible? Yes. We saw it against Cleveland. The Packers can beat themselves better than they can beat any other team. I don't find it likely. I think the Packers win this game big. I think they should win this game big. You can make a bunch of legitimate excuses for the loss and the tie. There are none you can make if you lose this game. If this game ends up close, right? If Joe Flacco plays well and it's a 10-point game, okay, fine. I just want them to win the game. But this is a game where you can beat the snot out of them, go into your next three very winnable games before you go into Philadelphia, or I guess Philadelphia comes to Green Bay. If they win big, get their swagger back, they go into next week and play the Cardinals, you got to be in a really, really good position at that time. So, again, I think this is a recipe for a massive win. They're coming off a bye. They're playing a really bad team with a brand new quarterback. This should be a blowout, okay? More than anything, they need to get their swagger back. The way that they played the first 2 games, they went into week 3 with a ton of confidence, as they should. They need to find that same magic again. They should have every reason in the world to show up for this game with their piss hot, to quote Matt LaFleur. I think they can win this game big, and they should win this game big. Final prediction, the Packers 34, Bengals 21. I think the Packers probably get up 24-7 or something late, and then they put it away late in the second half. I bet the Bengals get some garbage time TDs, and then that's probably about it. So I think the Packers win. I think we all go into week 7 already. My God, feeling really good about this team. I appreciate you guys listening. Download it, comment, 5-star review, tell your friends, tell your family, and send your questions in. I'll answer them at the beginning of next show. I should be back on Monday or Tuesday to talk about the recap of this game, and I will see you guys then. In the meantime, enjoy the game and go Pack Go.